This is infinite, amazing, melanated greatness. I am Shawn Bridges, and I am greatness. As growing up as a child, we didn't have much, but I didn't want for anything. So you would think that we had it all, and we didn't. But I had a good childhood. Going to school, out with friends as a child, having fun in school. Even I wasn't the greatest student, but I still knew enough to get by and get the grades I needed to get, and was able to graduate. Wow, the things I did for fun as a child, like most child in the urban neighborhood, play tag, go to playgrounds, to house parties, the basics. I mean, there's not much to do, but there's a lot. I mean, if you know what I'm saying, like, there's always a way to find something to do. Even when it wasn't always positive, there's always something to do. So it never was stagnant of, I'm sat at home bored or someone reported bored. It was never like that. Well, a series of events that led to my incarceration was a series of bad choices. I don't say mistakes because in life you don't make really mistakes. You want to choices. You choose to do one thing or the other. So I don't say mistakes. And I think me that brought my incarceration was mostly out of pride, because when you feel that you're being violated, there's a course of action you can do. You can go to authorities. You can go to somebody that can maybe help you, or take it in your own hands. And I took it in my own hands and got with people that didn't have my best interest at heart. And in doing so, it came to pride. So my mindset was, I'm protecting my family, which in fact I wasn't, because at the end of the day, I'm incarcerated. Now they're out there alone without me. And I had sons back then, early. So they grew up without me. And while I was a parent from behind bars, and like Mr. Carson said, we were better parents than most people in the street who were still incarcerated. So there was no hands-on being with your child, whether it be sports, homework, just everyday life choices. It was only a 15-minute phone call or an hour visit at that time. No, at that time I think it was a little less than an hour visit when we first started. Then it went on to be longer, but then by that time you kind of lost your kids. Now you got their attention no more. The streets got their attention, or their friends got their attention, and hopefully they got a grandparent that could maybe try to have that type of hold on them, but all they are is a grandparent. So most likely, you ain't gonna listen. You ain't my grandfather, you ain't my grandmother, you ain't my dad or mom. So making that choice to protect your family is most likely a wrong one, per se, and it gets you in that action of, oh, I'm gonna do this, and then this is where you end up at, in prison. Of course, be my father, of course, be my mother, because those were two prominent people in my life, even though they weren't in the same household. My father, because he always had a job. So no matter what I did in life, I always had a job. You can never say, I can do as much dirt as I want, but I always had a job. My mother, because she went through a lot of things, drug abuse. We moved from couch to couch because we weren't able to afford certain things, but she still made it. And she still taught me, no matter what we go through, we still can make it. And to this day, my mom got an apartment, she's doing good, and she always told me, and she's the one that always told me, you coming home, you coming home, you coming home. No matter what's going on, and no matter what got denied, you coming home. And she knew more than all of us that, because here I am. Of course, all of us watch movies, watch TV. This was my first bid, my first time in prison. So everything was, to me, was a new experience. So I wasn't sure how it would take being locked in a cage, not be able to move when I want to move. But it's like, unfortunately, but a good thing, I was comfortable. And it's a hard thing to say, but it might have helped me through all the time, because when I got to the cell and they closed the door, for a second I'm like, man. But I laid on the bunk and started reading a book. And that's kind of how I've been with. Read a book, watch TV, do things to occupy my mind, and not really think about me being incarcerated. At the same time, still try to fight for my freedom. When it comes to state prison, it's something totally different. Because the first question they ask you is, where do you want your body sent? And getting that question, at the time I was 21, I came in, I was 18, 19, came upstate when I was 21. You didn't know how to answer that. So my first question was, my grandmother, like, yeah, because that's the person I think we all use her house as an address. So I was like, my grandmother, Betty Hickson. And I think I'm like, wow, what's in my body, Betty Hickson's house? What am I thinking about? But then they say they do that because they want to know you may or may not make it out of prison. And of course, they're not going to send nobody's body to somebody's house, which I hope they don't. But that's one thing that really stood out when we first entering state prison. I mean, other than the regular question they asked, because you asked a question before in the county prison. But when you want your body sent, never. You're wide-eyed, because when I came through walking, because you cuff, like Mr. Carson said, you cuff everywhere you want. So me being on death row, I was cuffed immediately. I was separated and cuffed. So I'm sitting in a cell, waiting, what do you call it, bullpen, more or less. So I'm sitting in a cell, and waiting to do what they're going to do. So when they finally kind of got me, they started walking me. And I'm walking through population. You're like a magnet for eyes. You got to be stared at because you're the only person walking around with cuffs on and shackles. So everybody's looking at me. And it's bad because you don't know somebody gonna try to attack you. You don't know what's going on. You can't defend yourself. Everything's dependent on the person that's walking you. And you're you're walking with cuffs on. Then you see people you know. People you probably haven't seen in years. Wonder where were they at? Now you're seeing them, and they seeing you. Now you're both locked up. And they walk you down the long road, get you to a cell. Now where I was in Old Graterford first. In Old Graterford, down the hole, there's bars. So the things you saw in the movie, what I was just walking into. There's a toilet, there's a concrete slab with a mattress on it, a concrete little desk, and bars. That's all it was. All that thing had a cabinet. That's it. So everything you hear, everything you smell is right there. Everybody talking, you hear it. You hear people crying, yelling, screaming, throwing feces, all type of crazy stuff going on. You hear it all. And as a person that's first time in jail, you really don't know how to take that. But me being who I was and how I grew up, it didn't really affect me per se, but you paid attention. You took notice of it. Like, you always on point. Like, I got used to, not really, I sleep, but don't sleep. Like, you hear it, and you're like, now you see a dog or cat, and you hear something, the ears go up. That's how you are. You're like, well, I don't need to move, I'm awake. Okay, it's going away, all right, and I'm going to go back to sleep. And you stay with that. Or you be somewhere where once you come home, you won't be nowhere that you close doors like that. Or, like somebody told me this other day, you're always on the go. I said, when we stay in a cell for 23 years, or a cage for 23 years, you don't want to be nowhere that's just locked in. You always want to be on the move. And I said, I mean, I don't always go out, but I'm not nowhere in a room either. I might be in the living room where you see it's open, you look around and everything, a kitchen, the living room, but you're not in a room just locked in. You're always on the go. Keep the door cracked. Little quirky things like that. Like, one of my main things when I came home was turn the water off. Because I'm used to pushing the button and stay on, and then it goes off. I would turn the water on, wash my hands, and walk away. And somebody said, I turn around, the water's still on, I go back to turn the water off. And I think I can still do it today. I always gotta turn around. I turned it off, okay. So, being thrusted into a prison system, whether it be county or state, and I've never been before, is an experience in itself. I mean, people can come home and tell you how it is, but doing it yourself is a whole different ballgame. One of the things that you notice in others, and you know they came from a prison type system or setting, is one of the big things for me is always keeping their back to the wall. Never want to sit somewhere that they can't see something coming. or always being on point and always just looking around, keeping the head on the swivel. Like no matter what's going on, they like this. They might be talking to you, but they like this, looking over you, looking around, looking just everywhere except at you sometimes. And you think like, is he paying attention to me? He is. He just looking around, just making sure everything's around him is safe. I would say, and the funny thing is like, being in prison, money. You really take gauge of money. You don't know where your next dollar's coming from. So you don't spend money like people out in the real world. They be like, I'm gonna buy what I wanna buy. No, you're like, okay, I'm gonna buy this right here because I know I got some money coming in. But no money coming in, you might not eat what you want to eat because you wanna make sure the food is there in case of emergency. So you're like, all right, I'm gonna keep this money, I'm gonna keep this food here. Oh, wait a minute, I just got a money order. I'm eating this right now, I'm about to go to the store and replace it. But you usually don't do that regularly in the street. You're like, I'm gonna eat this and hopefully I get my paycheck or whatever. Or I'm gonna do this because I can ask somebody for something. But in prison, you're not really willing to do that because it might come some type of consequence of asking or any little thing you might do. So you try to pay attention more. I think that's the biggest one thing is paying attention. Moments in prison that I didn't think I would be able to handle. I can't say that it was because of where I came from. Like, growing up, you were thrusted in, like, you gonna go, like, win or lose, you gonna fight. And you couldn't come home like, I ran. Like, you what? Okay, come on. Come on, where we going? Like, we're going back to where we ran from, that's where we're going back to. So, I can't say, well, nothing I couldn't handle, which was surprising. Like I said, me being locked in a cell and couldn't move, couldn't leave that cell, as they opened the door, was something I didn't know if I could handle that. But I did. Why? I guess growing up, people around you, I can't really answer why I was able to do it. But I think how I grew up, the mindset of me growing up, or the physicality of not willing to just give up, or didn't have no problem with fighting, because that's what we did as kids anyway. So all those little things combined as one allowed you to handle certain things. That's why I think we had a question about young people maybe not be able to handle certain things because they have been through a lot of things. And that's why we always tell them, let my experience be your guide.